Hello everyone. Welcome back to episode 13 of Blackberry Honey. To be honest, I do remember what happened last episode. There's a lot of conflict. Yeah, I don't have anything to add. Let's just get right into it. The following day. Is it true? Did Miss Ingrid really pack her bags and leave? It seems that way. How shocking. I thought she, for sure, would stay, yet she lasted even less than Miss Aime. A good deal less. Only 2 weeks. Lottie shook her head. She looked bemused. Oh, that Lady Constance is fearful. How she was able to drive away such a proud woman, I do not know. I think they had a disagreement or two over Sappho. I don't know much about Sappho. Me neither. It would make much more sense if they disagreed about turnips. Why turnips? Oh, did I not tell you? My Uncle Alphonse got into a rightful feud with my Uncle Titus over the vegetable. Frightful. My Uncle Alphonse gave my Uncle Titus a crop of turnips from his farm as a gift, because my Aunt Johanna was about to have a baby, but the turnips had been inflicted with the blight. They were quite inedible, and when Aunt Johanna had some of the turnips, she was sick for weeks. I see. Lorena nodded her head dumbly, but she didn't really see. Her mind had already started to drift several syllables into Lottie's lengthy and convoluted explanation. Lottie had rather too many family members, and yet more of them seemed to emerge from the woodwork whenever the Swiss maid shared her stories. All these German names were difficult to keep abreast of. Lottie's family tree was a complex thing indeed, with even more roots and branches than Yggdrasil. The 8th of May, Sunday. How are y'all doing? Lorena made her way to the post office when Sunday service finished that week. She collected a letter from her mother in a haze, crumpling it in her hand. She was afraid of opening it. She couldn't remember what she had written in her previous letter, but her relationship with Tawa had progressed even further since then. What was she to do? Was there anything she could do? Would God ever forgive her? She'd already forgiven herself, but... Hey, watch where you're going, you cretin! Oh, it's... I know her name. I remember. Lorena staggered backwards, holding one hand to her head. She recognized that voice, though she wasn't overly familiar with it. It was the blonde girl with the impressive ringlets, Theodora's sister. What was her name? Emmeline? Evangelion? Ermengarde? Hold up. I gotta steal that last one. Oh, this pencil doesn't work. Oh, it's you. What are you doing here? I was just collecting my post. You should apologize for walking into me, you know. I'm sorry? Well, it's lacking in feeling, but I suppose it will do. I imagine your older sister grovels at your feet whenever you chastise her. How did you know? Ermengarde? Wait, has that been changing every time? It was a lucky guess. The girl stuck her nose up in the air. Evelyn? I suppose my big sister is rather predictable. If you were able If you were able to glean that much information from a single encounter, it's impressive that you would understand the very depths of her soul, but you can't remember my name. You could tell? Was this girl clairvoyant? Elizabeth? It's almost painfully obvious. You keep glancing to your left. That's what people do when they're trying to remember something they've forgotten. Is that really true? Edith? My big sister told me. And you believe her? Ellen? Not generally, but she can be quite perceptive. She has good eyes. I suppose one would need good eyes to repair violins. And steady hands. Quite. So, my name? It's Emily. Emily. Yes, Emily. Don't forget it again, or I won't forgive you. Alright, I won't. I promise. If I ever forgot Lady Constance's name like that, I'd be strung up in a gibbet. Luna had meant to mumble that remark under her breath, but Emily still heard her. The blonde girl frowned. Constance? Not the awful offspring of the Leonard family. You know Lady Constance? Of course I know Constance. Everyone around here does. That sour-faced, ill-tempered little brat is quite famous. I gather you don't care for her then? I care for her about as much as I care for Zanzibar and its forests and its scarlet fever. Lady Constance isn't as bad as all that. Though, seeing how she treated Miss Ingrid, Lorena wasn't sure. Emily raised a brow and Lorena paused, reconsidering. Well, I suppose she is quite bad. But she probably isn't as dangerous as scarlet fever. I'm just trying to warn you. Constance has never been able to get rid of Tao Hua. For all her trying, which makes her rather vindictive towards the other maids, I think she's trying to assert her authority. What do you mean? She wants to get rid of Tao Hua? Oh, did you not know? No. From what I've gathered, Constance has always hated Tao Hua. She's been trying to get Tao Hua fired since she was old enough to talk, with limited success. Though she can drive her governesses away in droves, Tao Hua has clung on for more than 10 years. She's incredibly crafty. Governesses? Lorena frowned. Do you know about Miss Ingrid? It's not just me. Everybody in Ellesmere knows about Miss Ingrid. And Miss Ime, and Miss Lillian, and Miss Catherine, and Miss Penelope, and Miss Adrienne. But Miss Ingrid was only dismissed a few days ago. Maybe so, but it's painfully obvious when yet another governess is drummed out of blind disgrace. They stop showing up at St. Mary's every Sunday, you see. Oh, I see. That's an interesting correlation. Lady Constance's foul temper was mostly kept in check when she ventured beyond the walls of Bly, but the consequences of her actions were immediately apparent to those in the nearby village. Idly, Lorena wondered if the congregation of St. Mary's placed bets on how long Lady Constance's governesses would last. Then again, maybe not. Gambling wasn't very Christian. Ellesmere is a small village, and people like gossiping. There's little else to gossip about round here, save Constance's new governesses. And Tao Hua, of course. What do you mean? Tao Hua is every bit as famous, if not more so, than the Leonard family themselves. Whenever anybody thinks about the Leonards, they think about the peculiar maid with her olive skin and almond eyes. You make her You make her sound like something to eat, rather than a human being. Because it's true. Tahua is well known precisely because she's unusual. People always stare when she goes into the village. Everyone wonders when she'll be driven out of Bly like Miss Ingrid and the rest, but it hasn't happened yet, and she's worked there for so long as I can remember. There are rumors about her, you know. What sorts of rumors? Sorts of rumors? All kinds. That she heralds from some mysterious backwoods country where they eat opium all day and roast babies on spits. I've heard children whisper that she's a witch, and the children aren't the only ones who believe those tall tales. But that's ridiculous! I know it's ridiculous, but Tahua does herself no favors by acting so aloof. She's been working at Bly for more than a decade, but she hasn't even tried to fit in with the villagers. Why would she trouble herself with people who think she's a witch? If she was more genial, they wouldn't say so many harsh things. People are afraid of the unknown. She could at least go to church. Luna had to admit, she herself had wondered about Tahua's conspicuous absence from Reverend Marner's sermons, but she hadn't lost sleep over it. Lorna hadn't missed Tahua. In fact, she'd been glad the older women didn't go to church. Why should she go to church anyway? She can't be a Christian. One only needs to look at her to work that out. That's what Lorna had thought. Not anymore. Still, it's probably in Tahua's best interest to maintain a reputation, solely though it is. Why? People are afraid of the unknown, but they're also drawn to it. They like the mystery. Why else is the Orient so fashionable? Lady Leonard has a lot of expensive ornaments from overseas. She displays them in her parlor for her guests. And it's much the same with Tahua. She's a curiosity, something pretty to put on display. How do you know all of this? Because my big sister is the only friend Tahua has in this village. Though I doubt you could call them friends. They only interact over Tahua's violin. And Tahua told your sister all of this? You forget. My big sister has known Tahua for more than a decade. Tahua doesn't say these things outright, but they can be guessed easily. I'm not an idiot, you know. I never said you were. Good. Emily turned her nose up in the air dismissively. She was, Lorna realized, not a girl who took being questioned well. She was probably accustomed to her older sister accepting everything she said as the unblemished truth, holier even than the word of God. Why else would Lady Leonard continue to employ Tahua, despite Constance's continued attempts to get her fired? It must be her value as a novelty item. I can think of no other reason. Well, you might be right. Of course I'm right. Ask Tahua yourself. She's probably ashamed of it, but who wouldn't be? I'd be ashamed too, if I made my living as a human doll. When you think about it, it's not that much different than being a prostitute. Don't say that about Tahua. What? That she's a prostitute? Or like? That she should be ashamed. She's done nothing to be ashamed about. It's not her fault what other people think about her. So she looks a little different. So what? That doesn't make her a bad person. Now why do you sound so riled up? I wasn't trying to cause offense. Oh. Could it be? Are you being loyal to your mistress? No, it's nothing like that at all. Well, if you ask me, there's nothing terrible about that. I beg your pardon? I'm glad Tawa has somebody who cares for her for who she is, difficult though as she can be. No matter what I say, I worry about her. But what about your big sister? Can't Tawa rely on her? I suppose. But my big sister isn't the best confidant. It sounds like Tawa has confided in her a lot. Not very much. I'm reading between the lines. Big sister hasn't picked up on the finer details, but that's to be expected. She's only good with violins. She isn't so good with people. She has no sensitivity whatsoever. How can somebody with no sensitivity devote their life to repairing instruments? Instruments are easier to work with than people. If there's something wrong with the violin, you can generally fix it. That's not always the case when you're dealing with fellow human beings. Emily paused thoughtfully and glanced up at the sky. I think you should try to get closer to Tawa. She might act like she's above petty things like affection and companionship, but people aren't islands. I wouldn't be surprised if she gets lonely from time to time. Are you sure? I'm positive. Happy people don't cling to inanimate objects like she does. Speaking of which, I think a violin will be fixed next week. Make sure you tell your mistress that. I'm sure she'll appreciate it. She isn't my mistress. Emily giggled. You are such a bad liar. Interesting. Chocolate bedroom. Oh. You have news about my violin? Yes, I happened to run into Emily in the village, and she said it should be finished by next week. Well, that is wonderful news. Tawa smiled, and Lorena found herself smiling along beside her. It was hard for Lorena not to share in Tawa's happiness. Though, naturally, the violin meant a good less deal to her. Lorena was sitting on the edge of Tawa's bed like she so often did. The older woman, meanwhile, was examining her own reflection in the mirror by her bedside. Lorena observed her silently for a few moments before she broached the question. What are you doing? Just checking. What? Is your hair starting to turn gray? Oh, you are cruel. I was actually thinking that I should tidy myself up. My rude Lori. My hair looks like a bird's nest. It looks fine to me. I've had a busy day. Some loose strands have started to escape at the back. If you're really that tired, maybe you should get some rest instead? I couldn't possibly. Why not? Because I'm spending time with you. How sweet. Lorena blushed shyly and looked down at her shoes. Don't be foolish. I don't care what you look like. You would say that, my Lori. You don't take proper care of your own hair, either. What precisely is wrong with my hair? There is nothing wrong with it, per se, but it is rather unruly. Well, excuse me. You know, I've wondered this for a while, my Lori, but why is your hair so short? Lorena pinched a strand of her hair between her thumb and finger and gave it a squeeze. Is it a problem? Not in the slightest, but you have to admit, it's quite an unusual style for a young lady. Effie's hair is shorter. And she is the most unusual maid I have ever met. And Pauline's? Remember, Lori, I did specify young. A small smile captured Lorena's lips. Her eyes crinkled at the corners. Funnily enough, talking to Taohua as of late always cheered her up, particularly when they were bad-mouthing Pauline. Still, talking about her hair was a rather sensitive subject. It dredged up memories Lorena didn't want to recall. She hung her head. A small sigh escaped from her lips. I've had long hair ever since my childhood. I just felt like changing it. Really? Tawa looked at Lorena in askance. Her bright green eyes were glittering, probing. Is that all? Lorena nodded. Truly? Honestly. But that was a lie. And for once, Lorena almost wanted to talk about it. Almost. She'd spoken to precious few people about the incident other than her own family. They'd been supportive of her in their own ways, even Mary, who chastised Lori for not taking advantage of the situation. Who's Mary? Why would she say that? Oh. Lorena had forgiven Mary, though. She was just a silly young girl. The Pickerings, however, hadn't been nearly as understanding. They had offered Lorena no support or sympathy. Instead, they had scolded her and labeled her as an opportunistic strumpet. But that wasn't true. At least, Lorena didn't think it was true. That wasn't how she saw it. But what about Taohua? What is it, Lori? Do you have something you want to share with me? I was thinking, this is a hypothetical scenario, you understand? Yes. What ifs? Beloved by all, from businessmen investing in the stock market to young children with grand dreams of being princes and princesses. I'm rather fond of them myself. What kind of things do you what if about? Strangulating Lady Constance, mostly. How terrible! I jest. Partially. In Minecraft, of course. So, what matter of things are you what-ifing about, my Lori? Well, say, for instance, there was a man. Tawa's nose wrinkled. She already knows what's up. Oh dear. I don't like the direction this what-if is going in already. Me neither, but that's where it begins. Then we can begin there if we must. Thank you. He was a wealthy man. A noble. His parents owned an estate much like Bly, and he was to inherit it. His parents were keen for him to marry a noble woman so they could have noble children, as you do. As is life. But then the family employed a new maid, just a regular housemaid. She wasn't very important, really. There was nothing special about her. Everything about her was average. I'm sure she wasn't so very average. She was. She was plain and unremarkable in absolutely every way, but she didn't mind that. She would have preferred if she could have worked silently, out of sight and out of mind, like all good maids should, but he had different ideas. Oh, Lori. He was fond of the maid for some reason. Overly fond, in fact. Maybe it was because she was young and naive and easy to manipulate, but he would often interrupt her while she was at work and instigate conversation. At first she didn't mind. In fact, she was somewhat flattered by the attention he lavished upon her. But over time, he said that my hair was pretty. Can you believe that? Such a ridiculous line. It's only hair. Everyone has hair. Joe the gardener doesn't. Well, no, but I wish he hadn't paid me such compliments. I wish he just left me alone. Why couldn't he have let me alone? Lori. He didn't do anything ungentlemanly, did he? Oh, things didn't escalate that far. He started to make me uncomfortable, so I tried to avoid being alone with him. Sometimes it worked, other times it didn't. And when it didn't, well, he would say things when he saw me. All kinds of things. He tried to touch me, but I would back away. He thought I was teasing and took it to be some kind of game. He thought my reluctance was amusing. At first. Then he grew angry. What did you do? I slapped him and ran away. Tawa whistled under her breath. Impressive. I would expect no less from my feisty Lori. You do have quite the temper. There was more to it than that. I was angry, yes, but I was also scared. I never asked for his attention. I never wanted his affection. Mary scolded me for wasting an opportunity. She said I could have coerced him into buying me some expensive gifts at least. But she wasn't the one who had to deal with him. I was. Mary? My little sister. She's 14. She sounds rather opportunistic. She'll probably be quite formidable when she gets older. She will if she ends up with a figure like yours. Hey! Lorena spluttered indignantly. I'm trying to have a serious conversation. I know, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to diffuse the tension. Well, I suppose it did work. In a way. Good. You don't feel so sad anymore, do you? I'm not sad, but I don't know. I don't like thinking about it. A sigh. After slapping one of my employers and making his nose bleed to boot, I was no longer welcome at Hartwell. I was turned out in disgrace, in fact. If I'd kept quiet and allowed him to continue with his flirtations, as he called them, perhaps I'd still be there now. But I don't think it would have been worth it. I don't want to be subjugated like that again. But nobody saw it from my perspective. They said it was my fault for leading him on. Being a temptress, you know. Because I'd laughed at one or two of his jokes and enjoyed some of our earlier conversations, and because I had nice hair. And to think I hadn't even disliked him in the beginning. I thought, quite foolishly, that when he was being nice to me, it was because he was truly nice. I thought when he said he cared about me, he meant it. I suppose he only cared in so much as I would let him have his way with me. Lorena sniffed. Her shoulders shook. She didn't want to cry, not over this. Arthur didn't deserve her tears. Arthur. She didn't want to think about the person who had ruined her career, destroyed her reputation, and could quite possibly have indirectly killed her, had the Hartwell's housekeeper, Miss Marianne, not pawned Lorena off on the Leonards. It will be all right. Miss Waugh might have a rather difficult time in Hartwell, but she's a hard worker and she does her best. I'm sure it will be fine. After all, you don't have any young sons of your own. In Bly, there was no gentleman for Lorena to unwittingly seduce, with her tempting and highly suggestive hair. Oh, Lori. My Lori. With a sniffle, Lorena let her head rest against Tahua's shoulder. Tahua held her obligingly. Her eyes were soft and gentle. If it's any consolation, I wouldn't blame the maid in your story for what happened. She committed no crime, other than, perhaps, being criminally adorable. Adorable? Indeed. I have no idea who this maid is, but I'm sure she's very beautiful, even after she cut off her own hair. Tahua smiled, coiling a strand of Lorena's fair brown hair about her fingers. Quite inexpertly, I might add. The ends are all uneven. Well, excuse me. I never claimed to be a professional hairdresser. Well, fortunately for you, I have rather skilled fingers. And what does that mean? It means, if I may be so bold, I would rather like to tend to your hair for you, my Lori. I feel like you don't care for it as much as you should. Well, alright. If you want to play with my hair, I have no objections. Good. Tahua giggled and pressed a kiss against the side of Lorena's cheek. I do love spoiling my pets. Record scratch. What? Alright, and I'm gonna leave that episode right there. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far, and I'll see you in the next video.